All right, so in 2020, I studied a year abroad in Bilbao, Spain. Have you done international exchange? Yeah, some of you have. I did, and we were basically just students from all over the world, united for our passion for beers before, after, and sometimes during class. Apparently, it was also a passion to cheat on your significant other back home. Yeah, a funny experience. We were all there from different parts of the world, but we all met the same obstacle. An identity crisis, some might call it. My Swedish classmate would put it this beautifully. My Swedish personality has been put through a shitty version of Google Translate. And if any of you have been in an international setting, you have probably experienced something like this. Another example could be, at home in Norway, I am really funny, but here in Spain, people just think I sound silly and somewhat happy-go-lucky. It's what I'm experiencing here in Spain. Others have maybe experienced that in Britain. My friends think I'm daft, but since moving to Spain, I've been asked twice to do a TED Talk. A third group of you have maybe experienced that in Italy. My friends think I'm pretty low-key. In Erasmus, they all think that I'm better than everybody else. If you haven't experienced this, I think you should get out more, honestly. But the other reason why you haven't experienced this is maybe because English is your first language and you portray your personality perfectly through your mother tongue. And even so, I know you must have experienced this as a listener. By raise of hands, how many of you have found a person less attractive as soon as they opened their mouth? Yeah? All right, it's not me, I hope. Would you believe me if you still have a 50% chance of marrying them anyway? It's a true fact. It is. By raise of hand, how many have changed your accent? Yeah, I saw that. How many have changed your accent to fit in a certain way? Or sound a certain way? Yeah, a lot of you have. And how many of you have been suspicious of a person merely for the way they spoke? Yeah, I know I have too. And if your country is anything like mine, the dialect you choose from within your country can also massively influence the way that the people around you see you. So like normally, if you want to sound smart and intelligent, you pick the dialect from the capital. And if you pick the dialect from the capital, people will also assume that you earn more, that you have better taste in food, maybe, that you know stuff, all the cool places. But there's also a chance that they might think that you are arrogant or snobbish. On the other hand, if you pick the rural dialect of your country, then people might think that you are uneducated. They might think that they can make a really good deal with you because they won't screw you over, but they probably won't believe you if you say that you have a PhD. Yes. And remember, this goes for all languages. This goes for all languages, and it's probably also the reason why Animal Planet was never narrated by someone from the outskirts of Alabama. Here, the penguin embarks on an emotional journey across the tundra. Oh, like, poor guy, look at him go with his little feet. It just doesn't match. And why is this? We had this discussion around one of the mandatory after-uni beers in Bilbao. Just a bunch of men surrounded around a table of beers. Imagine the UN if women never got the right to vote. And we were sitting there having a laugh about how much meaning was carried on by our respective languages, even just the smallest words. In Spanish, a beer is called cerveza. And cerveza is something you can have in the middle of the day. It is something very sexy and refreshing. It is something you can make small to have a cervecita. On the contrary, beer. Beer is American. Beer has a big label on it. And when you find the beer you like, that's the one you're having for the rest of your life. Pivo is the same in Eastern European countries. Pivo comes in big bottle. Pivo you can drink in Slavskol while you do it. And Pivo, I can say like this for a long time though. people, you have many at a time, okay? In German, they call it Bier. And beer, you can hear it, beer. Beer is big, beer is strong, beer is Prost. Beer is served in a cool glass at a football match. I mean, we were all just drinking Carlsberg, but the accents and the languages almost made them taste different. And we wondered why this was. And I was the language guy of the group. I spoke all the languages, and I was like, look, don't you guys just think that languages just sound inherently different? You know, like Southern European languages sound sexy. Northern European languages sound like they probably have a cool personality when you get to know them, okay? Like it's... A Dutch engineering student didn't agree. He was around the table and he said, Stephen, that doesn't make any sense. Stephen, that doesn't make any sense. Explain to me, what are the consonants, what are the vowels that make Spanish so sexy? Well, I mean, I was the language guy. I knew the answer to this. Spanish has primarily open, pure vowels. They can say A, E, I, O, U. I can sing a song for you. They have a low vocal placement, and they roll their R's. Yes. I thought this was a good argument, but it was smashed to shambles by someone from my own region. Mikko said over there, I am from Finland. And I have never been told I have sexy accent. And we have low vocal placement. We roll our R's and we can say A, E, I, O, U and U. And I think he was right, but I still wasn't convinced. You know, some languages some languages definitely sound harsh, and some languages don't sound harsh. Surely, we all know this. The best example, the winning argument, German. We all know German sounds harsh. We've all seen the videos on social media. Yeah, we have all seen them where they put like butterfly in English, mariposa in Spanish, farfalla in Italian, Schmetterling in German. And they keep going in the videos. Ambulance is Krankenwagen, aeroplane is Flugzeug. Even when they conjugate words, it sounds harsh. Ich bin, du bist, as sie es ist. I could go on. My roommate at the time was called Tilman Brettschneider. No, it was Tilman Brettschneider. And he said, all right, okay, Stephen, let me ask you this. How many German movies have you seen? How many German songs have you listened to? How do you honestly think our mothers read bedtime stories to us when we were kids? Und sie lebten bis an das Ende ihrer Tage. Gute Nacht, Tilman. No. Don't you just think that the story you have been told the most about my country is the one about World War II? We don't have to sound like that. You can just say Schmetterling, Krankenwagen, Flugzeug. And even though I'm stubborn, I felt like I was proven wrong again. And the more I looked into it, I found out that we have been judging people for the way that they sound for thousands of years. Back in ancient Greece, someone who didn't speak Greek was called Barbaros, which later gave birth to the word barbaric. But Barbaros was just Barbaros because when a Greek person would meet someone from, say, who spoke Arabic or Persian, they would say, this sounds like ba, ba, ba. That was their argument. It had nothing to do with violence. It was not until Greece would engage into warfare with these countries, and suddenly sounding like ba, ba, ba became a mark of violence. The language predated the stereotype in this case. And vice versa, somewhere along the lines, British English became the smart accent. Why? Because British has smarter vowels and smarter consonants? No. Because the universities were there. Cambridge, Oxford, later the BBC. The whole British Empire taught us that intelligence has an accent. And really, we think we're hearing intelligence when really we're hearing colonial branding. But our accents do tell a story. We can hear that. We've experienced that today. So why, Stephen? Why haven't you just picked the perfect TED accent? The perfect American speaker's accent? You could have done that for 10 minutes and you could have sold us a good talk. Yeah. The problem is, that's not me. I'm Danish. Okay? And if you're a keen listener to accents, you'll hear the quiet trace of the rural Danish upbringing where I come from. You'll hear it sometimes today when I've had to think about something, I will say instead of If you get to talk to me after this and you're talking to me and you say something that I agree with, then I will say, huh? Because that's what we do. You'll also hear that I've spent tens of thousands of hours on YouTube and social media. Social media is probably the biggest driver for accents today. So much so that there are people that live thousands of kilometers away from me that grew up in totally different countries, yet your accents sound a little bit like mine somehow. Some of you can probably hear that I worked in the US, which polished off the accent a little bit. But most of my colleagues were British, so my R's don't always know what side of the pond they belong to. But my accent isn't broken. And yours isn't either. It just tells a story. It tells a story about the people you've met and the places you've been. It tells a story about where you come from and what came before you. But the story about what came before you was not written by you. It was written for you by somebody else. And as much as people have used accents and dialects to divide us all into dumb and smart, cold and sexy, posh or common, we can use accents and dialects as a proud mark of identity. And if you, like me, end up in a foreign country surrounded by foreigners and lots of beers in the middle, your challenge is not to sound smarter, sexier, or more civilized. Your challenge is to remind yourselves that dialects and accents are woven into our words the same way skin wraps our bodies. It is not something we choose, it is something we inherit, and it carries even as much meaning. And if we understand that, accents become something we understand, celebrate, and sometimes laugh at. Thank you.